people watching. All right. All right, everybody. Welcome to the 6th year of the Iowa Files. Want to thank, I know, that's pretty awesome. Want to thank our partners, the West Des Moines Public Library, the Friends Foundation of the West Des Moines Library, and Diana and Scott Hatfield for helping make this possible, especially those of you who I see quite a few online watching. We wouldn't be able to do a live stream or recording without you. So thank you very much. So we thought it was appropriate to kick off the very first presentation talking about a project that is near, literally, and dear to the Jordan House. If you've driven by recently, you will see that the former church campground has undergone an amazing restoration, or the beginning part of a restoration. It's going to lead to a fantastic community project called Legacy Woods. There's going to be a nature sanctuary and a history section. So we wanted to bring in some of the fine folks who have been spearheading this for the last 50, 60 years, it feels like, from West Des Moines Parks and Rec. So we have Ryan Penning, who is in charge of Parks and Rec, Marco Alvarez, and Allison Ullestad, who is a supervisor and on the West Des Moines board. So we're going to give you a little bit of history of the land, what's happening now kind of behind the scenes, and what's going to be happening as we move forward. So thank you so much for coming.
Yes, welcome. As Gale said, I'm Allison Ullestad. I'm the Arts, Culture, and Enrichment Supervisor in the Parks and Recreation Department. In that role, I supervise all of our public art program, the Jamie Hurd Amphitheater, woohoo! There's a concert after this at 6 o'clock if you wanted to be there. And then also just any arts and cultural programming. And so, as Gale said, I'm also on the West Des Moines Historical Society Board of Directors as the city liaison. So first of all, I think most of you know this, but just wanted to never assume, right, that everyone knows where we're talking when we're talking about where Legacy Woods is. So as you can see in the big overall picture, we're right down here by Raccoon River Park at the intersection of Grand and Fuller. And this is just a very broad overview of the project site with a few of the things pointed out on it. So we've had lots of questions that say, okay, so who owns the land? Who owned the land? And how does the city now have the land? And I have joked before that I should have done like 3 screens of just a line where it had prehistoric cultures, because many thousands of years before us, there were prehistoric cultures. The Sioux, the Iowa, the Sac and Fox, which became the Meskwaki, also used the land. I don't think they would use the term owned the land. And then in 1845, the US government said, okay, time for you all to leave, and we're going to move you to Kansas, and then settlers can come in and claim some land. And at that time, 1846, James C. Jordan came in and staked his claim under large oak trees on the now property, and lived in a, let's call it a shack almost, for the first winter on the property. And from what it says, it was a very tough winter. And they had a hard time, and then they kind of built a log cabin. And then after that, they started on the official home. And the home itself, Gale,
1850 was the first part.
1850, the first part ended in the 70s, right, with the second edition?
Yeah, the edition was 1870, 1872. Takes a little while to build these things by hand, as you can imagine.
So for over 100 years, the Jordan family owned that land and the house. And then it was sold in 1947 for the price of, I think, $12,000. 25 acres was sold to the Iowa Church of the Nazarene. And most of you might remember that, where they set up a camp, Bible camp area. And Gale's going to talk to you a little bit about how the house was saved.
So after the Nazarenes built their campground, all of those buildings, the majority of which were from the 50s and 60s, the Jordan House became, for a while, the girls' dorm for the camp. So there used to be bunk beds stacked in every room. It was used as a caretaker's house, and also there used to be a dairy across Fuller, and the Jordan House is where they stored their hay and grain. So you can imagine what kind of condition the poor house was in by 1970. And in fact, the city of West Des Moines asked the fire department, do you want to use this as a practice burn? You want to set it on fire, put it out, set it on fire again? And enough people got fired up, pun intended, that the Historical Society was formed in 1970. We were able, some amazing volunteers were able to get it on the National Register of Historic Places in 1973. And then by 1978, the Historical Society had raised the $20,000 necessary to buy the house and approximately the 1 acre that it sits on. So, and then the restoration began. And I could not even begin to guess how many hours, hundreds of thousands of hours of volunteer work went in to saving this house that had no complete windows. Every window was broken. The 1850 and 1870 part upstairs were splitting apart. So it was pouring rain in the house. But community effort and the effort of the West Des Moines City Council and volunteers made this one of the most rare things, an actual stop on the Underground Railroad with a building possible in our community.
So after that was going, the Church of the Nazarene decided to sell their land to the Walnut Creek Church in 2008, which then the Walnut Creek Church did also do Bible camps and programs on that land. They owned that land until all of the land until 2020, when the West Des Moines Historical Society, with the backing and help of the city through their hotel motel tax fund, purchased an adjacent 3 acres of land to kind of protect and put a buffer around the Jordan House if it were to ever, the land were ever to be bought for development. It was important to the society to say, no, we were not going to have a business right up next to the Jordan House. So between 2020 and 2023, many people, several developers came in. There were some contentious things going on with what was going to be there. And eventually it landed where the city said, you know what, we'll buy it. So they purchased the rest of the property, except for that 3 acres of land, 4, I guess, because the acre that Jordan House was on. And then this vision kind of started to come. It started as, let's put an arboretum on that space. And then the society and the city kind of thought, you know what if we made this bigger than just an arboretum? What if we come together to make this really something very special? And it seemed a good match with the city already partners with the Historical Society for doing programs and things, and we've had a good relationship. And so the city said, yep, we can make it if you would be willing to transfer back those 3 acres, and it's all under city ownership. And so the whole property, except for the Jordan House and the 1 acre it sits on, is now city property. So the city owns all of that. And in that, and part of that is the Oak Hill Cemetery that we will talk about in a little bit. So the kind of basic 3 things are the whole property, except for the house and the 1 acre, and then the Oak Hill Cemetery. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Penning.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Penning. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation. Happy to be here. But as we talk about this project, we have to talk about the collaboration. And really, there's 3 key stakeholders that are part of Legacy Woods. First, you have the city of West Des Moines, with the city purchasing the land back in June of 2023 for $2 million. And then you have the West Des Moines Historical Society and Gale and her board of directors, and then the Nature Sanctuary, which is the private sector. So because of that collaboration, really this project is becoming a reality. I think if you look at any one of those 3 key stakeholders, if they were to do this project by themselves, I don't know if it would have been possible. But because we're collaborating, because we're putting our resources together, this project is happening and it is becoming a reality. I'd like to just recognize a few members from the Legacy Woods Design Board. You have a number of members from the city of West Des Moines, including Marco, who you'll hear from shortly. You've already heard from Allison. Paul Taki is the urban forestry supervisor out at Public Services. We also have city manager Tom Haddon, Ed Arp, architect and layperson from CEC, Gale Brubaker from the Historical Society, Inger Lamb, Kelly Pierce, past president of the Historical Society, Matt Rosen, Don Shane, and that's all on our list. I think the city has done a tremendous job, especially here in the last couple of years, of quality of life initiatives and projects. And the success of that is because we have the support from city council, city management, but also the public. And how these initiatives and projects are completed is because of the support from our community and the private sector. To give you a couple of examples, we have the Jamie Hurd Amphitheater that Allison mentioned that's on the city campus. The Athene Pedestrian Bridge and the Mid-American Recplex. All three of those significant projects were a public-private partnership. The Jamie Hurd Amphitheater, a $2.4 million project, 2/3 of those funds were done from the private sector. The Athene Pedestrian Bridge is just over $9 million. We raised almost $3 million from the private sector. A $62 million Recplex, we had almost $13 million from naming rights, individual donations, and grants. So Legacy Woods is that next big public-private partnership. And what's unique about it is every one of those is different in its own way. Legacy Woods, if you look at, obviously, again, the city of West Des Moines and the public sector, you have the private sector in the nature sanctuary, which is being led by Don Shane and Dan Houston. Those two individuals donated $500,000 each to really jumpstart this project. It was really Don Shane's vision of creating this arboretum and nature sanctuary, and he approached the city with this idea. But it was at that time that the city went to the Historical Society and said, hey, obviously the Jordan House is already on this property. How can we make this project more holistic? How can we make it more complete? It's not just a nature sanctuary or arboretum, but how can we bring this historic campus to this project as well? And that's how you have this collaboration. So really, our involvement as a city is kind of the administrative. We're applying for grants to help offset these costs. So I know Allison and myself, we have more than $450,000 in grant applications out there right now. In the future, here in the near future, there will be another $350,000 in grant applications. So that's besides the contribution that the city put into purchasing the land back in June. That's how we're really contributing to this project. The nature sanctuary, like I said, is going out. They're fundraising for that specific part of it. And then eventually the Historical Society will have their own fundraising campaign for what we'll talk about here in a little bit is a historic campus. So to date, the nature sanctuary, preliminary cost estimates are around $4.7 million. That estimate is really, I would say, fluid, and how we can do that is obviously through monetary donations, but Ed Arp and his staff are really looking at ways to reduce that, whether it's in-kind donations or monetary donations. So to date, they have raised just short of $1.2 million. The project fund balance to date is just over $700,000. So what's really important about this project is the phasing of it will happen as the project has funds available. So like I said, we've raised over $1.2 million. The 19 buildings that were demoed cost around $400,000. So we've spent some money already, but as we have these funds available, the next phases will happen. So the next phase Marco will talk about, we're hoping yet to happen this fall with some grading and utilities. And then obviously the historic campus, one of the grants that we have out there and have applied for is really pre-design and to get a cost estimate of what it would, how much it would cost to do a heritage center to move the log cabin and the Bennett School to this historic campus. So again, I can't thank the Historical Society enough. Thank Don Shane and Dan Houston for their contributions and their efforts going out into the community and fundraising. It's really a unique collaboration, but like I said, I don't think this project would be happening without these three key stakeholders.
Thank you. My name's Marco Alvarez, Superintendent of Parks. I've been with the city for just over 17 years. And so as my role, I help oversee the planning, design, and operations of our parks and green spaces. including Legacy Wood. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about just some of the work that has been completed to date, what we're working towards for the next phase of improvements, and just kind of that process that we've been taking. So obviously some of the first steps that we did after we acquired the land was demolition of the site of the building. So as we all know, with the former church camp there was a lot of buildings that had become just abandoned, and they were really considered a public just nuisance, as they were being used by homeless camps. And so we reviewed them just to see if there was any significant historical value in them. Our fire marshal also reviewed, because we really wanted to see, okay, are any of these buildings worth salvaging and reusing? But after reviewing them and meeting as the committee, we decided that it would be best if we demoed. So that was one of the first steps. We hired a contractor, Jay Petticore, to do that work. It was approximately almost over $300,000 to do it, but they did a great job. If you have driven by the site, it's been significantly cleaned up now. I think if you go to the next. Yes. So in this exhibit, it just shows the buildings that were existing in orange. The yellow were structures that were also removed. There were some old volleyball courts, basketball courts, and then the green are the remaining structures. So obviously the Jordan House is remaining. And then there is one maintenance shed there too that the Historical Society utilizes. And I believe we're still in ultimately whether that will remain. I think it will remain in the interim, and then eventually it would be removed as well. Thank you. Sure. And here we'll do just a quick drone video of the site, so everyone's familiar here. And you can see some of those old existing buildings that had previously. And then there you see the existing stand of timber there. It's just a mix of oak trees. I believe there's also some walnut trees in there. And so one of the areas of improvements that we'll be doing, here you can start seeing Oak Hill Cemetery there as well. And then to the north there is Jordan Creek, along with the Jordan Creek Trail that runs adjacent. So as part of the master plan that I'll talk to here in a little bit, we wanted to make that a key part of this plan as well. Here, moving back, you see Grand Avenue. You can see Raccoon River Park in the background there, Blue Heron Lake. And there's some of the volleyball courts and sport courts that were previously used. Some of the existing land uses surrounding the site, and panning back there too.
Can you imagine what James Jordan would think if he were to see a video like this? How did that happen?
Thank you. And so, yeah, but here's just some images. I believe these are on the website too. If you do like while the demolition was taking place, we were taking videos and pictures of that just on that process. So if you go to that link, you'll be able to see those, but it was pretty interesting process. And here we see some of the drone images of post demo. So now that the area has been cleared and just recently was seeded, so to minimize erosion and yeah.
So if you look here, Jordan House, this was the tabernacle. And then this is looking like kind of on those ball fields.
Yes, where the former ball field sand court used to be. Mm-hmm.
Nice clean view.
So while the demolition was taking place, we were also then going through our master plan process for the site. So a master plan is really a guiding document on what we want the site to be. It's not set in stone. It allows for flexibility. with the idea that as we get more study, more analysis of the site, we're able to adjust as needed. But this is really just to give us that vision of where we want to head to. So it's part of that design board that you saw earlier, as well as some stakeholders. We went through this process of identifying what we want this site to be. And really one of the key points that came out of it was the preservation and enhancement of the site, right? We really wanted to preserve what is there, and really enhance those natural features that have existed on there. Part of that is, mentioned earlier, is this arboretum, a chance to really celebrate and provide, really just educate too on the native trees of Iowa, okay? And also start putting some of the trees back that were used to be on site there. So oak trees, there's several there, just magnificent heritage oak trees. So as part of the master plan, we designed everything to really try and preserve and so minimize and actually any trees, removing any trees from the site. In fact, here just recently, we've been in conversation with the state forestry department on there's a potential 2 oak trees there that could be a championship status as far as just the size of them for the state of Iowa. So that just adds to just the great story that the site provides. Yes.
That property that was sold or was going to be a school, and they took down a whole lot of oak trees. Do you have some idea about how many they leveled, and do you have to remove the stumps and all that sort of thing?
Yes. So yes, that was a prior owner. Yes, I think there was some desire to have a development there, and so they went ahead and removed the trees without, I think, really having an idea of ultimately what's going to happen. And that was very unfortunate. But yeah, since then, the stumps actually, soon after we purchased, we went through and removed the stumps and actually all the debris. They had kind of piled all those oak trees on the edge of the property. And so we wanted just to clean that up. And so that, yes, those have since been removed.
Do you have any estimate of how many trees?
I don't off the top of my head, but yes.
Because there were a lot more oak trees.
Mm-hmm. And so just some of the key points I wanted to point out on the master plan here is, as mentioned earlier, there's kind of 3 distinct portions of it. There is the nature sanctuary, which really aims, again, to preserve and enhance the site. Included in that is the arboretum. We also are showing a future shelter and trellis area, being very sensitive to water quality on the site through the use of bioswales and wetlands there too, to treat just the surface runoff. When you're introducing paved areas, you want to just have a chance for that water that comes off of the pavement, a chance to clean before it just goes into the sewers. Also, obviously recognizing donors that have contributed to the project. So we have a area there for donor recognition. And then also just these spaces that people can enjoy smaller. So one is called the fairway, where it's kind of just a grassy area that the public can enjoy. An orchard, yeah, not for golf, not a golf, just really introducing native grasses, again, restoring the land to what it used to be. And then also making this, recognizing that this is can be a family site, right? So introducing some elements that children can also enjoy. So one aspect is incorporating a natural playground. That's not a traditional playground that you would see at our parks. It's more using just natural features like wooden planks and just so that it's more in tune with the site itself. And so that would be unique to West Des Moines. We currently do not have one of those. Okay.
So is this area around the Jordan House?
Yes. So if we go back, I'm sorry, I could go in a little bit more into detail here if you like. So Yep. So the Jordan House is there. The nature sanctuary
Is
where
that all to the south of the house then?
would be to the west. So this area, yep, right, and north.
But you still have that perimeter, like when the city bought that 3 acres, so you don't have businesses right up next to the house.
Correct.
Is the perimeter and the roads.
Yeah, so we'll have the Jordan Creek on the north that would border the north and east of the site. You'll have obviously Grand Avenue to the west, but then between the house and and Grand Avenue would be the arboretum. It'd be a stand of natural native grasses, kind of where the former buildings that used to be there, the tabernacle. Yep. That's where the future parking lot will be to serve both the Jordan House and the nature sanctuary, some of those future improvements. So it'll be a shared parking lot.
So this is a big open green space between the parking lot and the Jordan House.
Yeah, but you don't want to lose the ambiance around the house.
We're not gonna, no, this is
No.
much better than
You
100,000
know, it was
square foot.
terrible down in San Antonio where the Alamo was here and they built all these.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yep.
The city has been incredibly thoughtful and
So the
our
Jordan House will
design.
remain its own little entity.
Yep, and we're gonna get to that.
Yes. So as part of that, just the master plan to get, there is another component here that really takes a look at that Jordan House and the area around it that we're calling that historic campus to really get into even more of the details on what that portion of the site will be on it, which we'll talk to in here in a second. Yes.
There was a curb cut on Grand Avenue in the film using.
Yes.
Are you gonna use that? What's
The existing curb cut? No. So our main access entrance will be off of Fuller Road would be. Mhm.
And then there might be a secondary one over here. And you were talking about curb cut up.
Yeah, it was in the drone.
Yeah.
Yes, yep, that's an existing, yeah, but as of right now, our master plan does not show that as being a entry point into.
So do you have any way of putting in the Jordan Cemetery
Jordan Cemetery
that's down the road?
of bringing in, what,
It hooking into this in any way? No? No.
The Oak Hill Cemetery's got great history too, so.
yes, so another component of the site is, of course, Oak Hill Cemetery. Would you like to speak to it, Allison? I don't know if you know more about it or.
Yeah. So Oak Hill Cemetery, I'm going to go back a couple shots here, is this little white box up at the top, if you'll see up by the creek. So that has been there since James Jordan put it there, okay? So what we know historically, I have to give credit to Karen Kuntz, who did a whole bunch of research and actually has written a book called Oak Hill Cemetery, History and Mysteries of the Old West Des Moines. You can buy copies of that at the Jordan House. It gets some great stories about what she found out about there. So who is buried there or was buried there? We know that travelers heading west and pioneers, and then at least one Civil War soldier is buried there. And there's a cool story that goes along with that too, about how we did a ceremony to put a new gravestone on that Civil War soldier's grave. Oral history, and we would love for it to be written history or something determined, but that there are freedom seekers from the Underground Railroad who were sick or injured and were buried in unmarked graves on that hill. And then obviously Jordan family members were buried there. And there are a few that remain, but James Jordan had most of them removed and put in the Jordan Cemetery just up the road when he realized it was going to need to be bigger. But I think a brother-in-law and sister-in-law and a child or two are still, we know, are still there. But in 2016, a ground penetrating radar survey was done. And it revealed that if you, this little picture is hard to see. It's just a little white fence that goes around it. Okay, that was put up by the church, Nazarene church groundskeeper that thought, oh, this might be a good boundary for the cemetery. It is absolutely not the boundary. And it was actually shown that there are many more people buried there than just this little area. Now,
Potentially.
potentially, we have to say all this with a caveat because we don't want anyone to go up digging, right? This is not an open call to find out what is going to happen there and who's there. But it would be great to know more for sure. And actually, just next week, I think next Monday and Tuesday, or tomorrow, I guess, this week, we are bringing in archaeological survey company to make sure and then do the whole site as historical society members and as city. We really want to make sure that we aren't disturbing something that we didn't think about. Number one, just because of the ethical, moral values of it. Number two, it's really hard to get any federal funding if we haven't done that. So hopefully when this study comes back, they will help us and tell us how far they can think those boundaries will go. But beyond that, we could do another ground penetrating survey to go even a little further. And other types of surveys could be done. And if you want to learn about a fun canine survey that we had done, come to the Historic West Des Moines Cemetery Tour. That's on October 5th. We still have spots available, $25. We'll talk about that. We'll tell you all about that and more about the Oak Hill Cemetery. And the city does own the cemetery as well. It was passed on in 2022, I think, 2020. And the city decided, it didn't have a name. So the city then decided Oak Hill was what it was going to be called. And I'll let Marco talk about what the city wants to do with it.
So what are they gonna do Monday and Tuesday this coming week? You know, gonna look for graves.
It would be an archaeological study, but of the entire site. So they'll do, I don't know all the exact details, but they'll do some like sample course, of what, just to make sure that, because before we start doing any excavation work, obviously we want to make sure that we're being sensitive to the site.
What about
Yeah.
doing it? Did they dig, did they do the ground penetrating or what?
Yeah, so there's different levels. So this one's considered a phase 1 archaeological study. So it's more of a preliminary kind of investigation, some research, past research on it. And then if there's any reason to believe that, yes, there's some things that needs further exploration, then it goes to a phase 2 that involves a more in-depth study. So it's kind of the first step in that process. Yes, so it's just part of our master, and really even with the demo of the site, we've been very sensitive just to the Oak Hill Cemetery area, just not really knowing just the limits up there. So if you notice in our master plan, while we are absolutely, our intent is to preserve the cemetery, we have not shown really much for improvements up there because we just want to be sensitive. We don't want to do a lot of grading up there. We just want to kind of preserve, clean the area up. There were 2 old cabins that were in that area. As part of the demo, coordinating with the state archaeological department, they recommended that there would be like to leave the foundations in place. So we only took the building above ground over. So on site, there's still the foundation is still there because again, we just don't want to get into the ground until we have a better idea of just what is there. So more study, more planning definitely to come on Oak Hill Cemetery in the area around there. But we just wanted to mention that is part of our just overall site and future improvements. Yes.
You mentioned Indians earlier. Are there any Indians buried out in that area?
We don't know. So that is part of the purpose of this archaeological survey. And we are also pulling together a team to help with what can be done to improve and preserve that site that at this point does include members of the Meskwaki Nation. So we are trying to reach out to anybody who would have professional experience, personal tribal experience with it to see. There's always oral rumors and oral stories, but we're trying to prove it. But the city is going very slowly and very carefully, which I think is respectful and to be admired. They're not going in there and clear cutting anything. We want to be really careful that we don't run into ancient human remains, because we've all seen the movies and it doesn't end well. So
Doesn't the city have any, Jordan moved graves from there up to the other?
No, the records don't start until the actual Jordan Cemetery. And even then, it was several
it was 1855, so there weren't.
decades after.
But you know, where my family has fought in Bondurant, they had a survey come out like an ultrasound type thing. And they could go over and they could tell if there were.
Yep, and that's what we have done and would like to do more of.
Yeah.
But all that really technically shows is areas of disturbed soil. It doesn't necessarily mean you don't see caskets or anything on the image. Well, you know what it is. When you see an area that's been disturbed and it's about 6 foot long, it has an east-west, that is most likely a Christian burial. So we don't want people going up there. We don't want people going up there with shovels. I'll be completely blunt. That's one of our fears.
The Squawky Nation doesn't have any archives.
That's why we're bringing them together. So, yeah, we certainly hope they can help us with this, and they will also be part of the History and Heritage Center that we're going to create, because we want to be able to tell their stories in a more accurate and inclusive way.
Much more to cover here, so we're just going to keep moving here on. Okay. Before we get into the historic campus, just want to mention a few things that will be coming up here. We mentioned the archaeological study that could be starting as soon as tomorrow. We also have first phase on the arboretum tree plantings. We were able to acquire $10,000 from the state specifically for trees, and so we have a volunteer tree planting event on October 5th from 8:30 to 11 o'clock, and we'll be planting trees in that arboretum site. And so our goal is to have over 70 different types of species of trees that will eventually be planted on site. So that will be upcoming. And then also what we're calling phase 1, starting at 8:30. Yep. And there is a volunteer sign up that's also on the website, the project website, where you can sign up and come help plant some trees. And then also I want to mention what we're calling phase 1 of the nature sanctuary that we're currently working towards. That will include the grading, utilities, and hopefully a parking lot on the site. And that will be the grading that's on the western portion, this portion over here. Yep. And then the parking lot in this area here. And then the utilities, so future sanitary sewer and water lines that will eventually serve the restroom and other buildings in that site. So we want to get those utilities in first, because we don't want to have to come back and disturb the land once we start. So we want to do that's one of the first improvements. And so that's estimated, that work's estimated to be about $1 million. As Ryan mentioned earlier, I think we currently have about $800,000. And so we're still a little short, but we're doing some value engineering, and we've applied for some grants. And hopefully, if those are successful, we could start seeing improvements as soon as this fall yet. So that's some of the things we are working on. So thank you.
And you might have noticed on your handout that there's ways to donate. And if you just go to the main website, you'll find that you can donate specifically to the nature sanctuary portion, or to what we're going to tell you about right now as the historic campus, or better yet, both, right? So it is being handled. If you want to keep things moving along quickly, you might want to do the nature sanctuary so that we can get some money to start that phase 1. But what we're going to talk about next is also something that is going to be a lot of money, but we're excited by it. We're calling it the Historic Campus. And as you can see, the dark blue is where the current Jordan House is. And this map is so misleading because that house isn't a small house, right? But on this map, which is to scale, it is very, very small. So it is a lot of property, as you can tell. Jordan House will remain. And actually just improvements in the fact that what we are thinking of is calling, well, let me follow my order. I'm better that way. Anything else about the Jordan House that we missed, Gale?
No.
Okay. So then, if you know, just up the road is Bennett School. That was owned and operated by the Historical Society. And if you go, oh my gosh, let's not move that. Well, it's not in its original location right now. It was originally located where McDonald's and Come and Go are, just off of South 50th Street. And so it was built in 1926 to 27, used as a school until 1941. And then it was relocated and put on its current site next to Jordan Creek Elementary in the 90s. And then we would like to move that onto the historic campus, not only for operations, so it's easier for staff to, be there all the time, but also expand our tour options. So you might be able to tour the Jordan House and the Bennett School and what else we're getting into. Any more you want to add about Bennett School?
Just to give you an idea, I've got one estimate for moving it, and it's around $225,000. So on one hand, oh my Lord, but on the other hand, you're moving a building and digging out a basement and all of that stuff. Doesn't seem so bad, right? So.
And it is, yes, where it currently is, you do use that still. It's not like it's sitting there unused right now. It would just be an easier option and offer more opportunities. The second exciting thing of being moved to the site, the society was offered a log cabin by the State Historical Society of Iowa after they deaccessioned it. And we said, yes, we will take it. There is a log cabin, we're thinking 1872, 1874, that was erected by William and Catherine Nolte in Marion County. And my historian went, okay, I got to find out who these people were. So yesterday I dug into it a little to see who were William and Catherine. And I found out they were German immigrants. William came over when he was 16, and Catherine came over when she was 4. They met and married in 1871 in Marion County, and had 7 sons and 5 daughters. And at least the first 3 would have been born right around that 1872, 1874 time. So it's kind of exciting to think that there were babies built in there. That's awful. Babies born in there. But that was kind of fun to learn about. I would love, and this is just my personal thoughts, how about we trace some ancestors and have them there and be a part of the whole when we put the cabin back together? Wouldn't that be cool to see? But right now, you're going, okay, it's at the State Historical Museum. It's in pieces. So it is literally just long timbers that they've got up off the floor and numbered, and the whole puzzle is ready to put together. But we would love to reconstruct that on the historic campus. Let's see, and do a log cabin raising event. I think that would be really fun to have that process done. Anything else about the log cabin? Okay. And those are actual pictures of the log cabin. So then, now the big money item is what we're calling a heritage center. And it would be a multi-use facility. One of the main reasons we would want this is for exhibit space. If you've been to the Jordan House, it is lovely with great exhibits, but you run out of room, right? Specifically, the narrative of the Underground Railroad. You have to go to the basement. And if you can't do stairs, you can't go down there. It is also misleading, and people assume that is where freedom seekers were. They were never in the house. So a lot of assumptions get made that that basement is where they were. So we would love to bring and do an actual a really nice exhibit. Like Gale said, it's really unique that we have this here in West Des Moines. And this story, it's kind of been, again, in the basement for years as a story that's just being told. You have to go down there to see it. Let's bring it up. Let's give it some light. Let's celebrate it. And that's where we will involve people from the National Park Service, which, do you want to talk about the Network to Freedom?
So the Jordan House has a designation as being on the National Park Service's Network to Freedom, which is actually international sites now. They just added some in Canada. These are all places that were involved with the Underground Railroad. So if you look, there are maps online of part of the John Brown Freedom Trail, which is what we are, part of our designation, because this was the last journey that John Brown, that radical abolitionist, took with freedom seekers he was escorting to Canada. And he stayed on the Jordan property on February 17th, 1859. So when you go to the Jordan House, you're actually walking in the footsteps of this history. So we want to do a better job at telling it. Right now, we don't tell nearly a good enough story about the freedom seekers who came through. And we recently put up some updated panels and things like that. But this story is so absolutely rich with not only history, but tie in with what's happening today for fights for freedom, that this is a completely logical to us extension of what we do as a historical society.
And along with that, like we've mentioned, the indigenous tribes and peoples that were on the land or used the land before. Again, if we can find information, we want to tell that as an authentic, correct story, and with them, instead of making it our story to tell, involve that community, as well as the Mexican and African American communities in Valley Junction, which that's a cool history too. So we want to make this Heritage Center have exhibits that's more than just James Jordan. We are the West Des Moines Historical Society, and we want to tell the whole story of West Des Moines. So hopefully a Heritage Center can help us do that. Also, this is what I'm excited about the most, but creating a crafter and artisan space. So basically a space where you can learn, create, and share knowledge about heritage crafts. Now you may go, what the heck is a heritage craft? Well, the UK is so much better about preserving their heritage crafts. So this is the UK definition because I couldn't find one for the US, but it's a practice that involves skilled manual work, knowledge of traditional materials and techniques, and has been passed down through at least 2 generations. So we're talking calligraphy, candles, felting, paper making, pottery, wood carving. Wouldn't it be cool to have a space where you could come and learn how to do those things, and a space to use the equipment to make those things? We don't know what that looks like now, if that's a membership that you get to, just sign up and come in and use the space, or if we just offer classes. We have to find the people that can do this. It's important. I went to a friend's garage sale today, and I immediately bought her a big piece of hardanger, if anybody knows what hardanger is. Things like that, like teach people how to do hardanger. It's hardanger. But classes where these skills, and we're going to lose it if we don't teach somebody how to do it. So hopefully we can develop what that looks like. And then obviously, I think we're going to do a big community space where we can have rentals, we can have events. Wouldn't it be cool to get married in the arboretum and have your reception in the community room, right? Or have a graduation party on the Great Lawn and then go and have your reception in the community room. Also, teach those large classes, workshops, lectures. Right now, we have so many cool ideas for the Historical Society, and we would host this program would be at the Jordan House if we had any room, right? Because there is one tiny room where about 12 people can fit. So just even that would provide excellent opportunities for what we can do. But again, that Heritage Center would come at quite a cost. But another one that I'm really excited about, this one is happening. Like I said, the Public Arts Advisory Commission is under the Parks and Rec Department. And the Public Arts Advisory has decided to fund and install some permanent artwork at Legacy Woods. So we already, according to our process that we follow, have convened a public art work group. We've already met, and now we just need to determine what we want this artwork to be and what we tell artists when we go reach out for artists of who this will be. And then it's a big project. It's awesome. It's $170,000. And that's part of the Public Art Fund, and then a $50,000 grant from Bravo. So we're really excited about what that can be. We have no idea if it's multiple pieces, if it's a mural or a statue, or like, we have no idea. A lot of that is part of the process. So that's exciting, but this will happen. So basically, like you can see, the phase 1 plan that we talked about doesn't involve much on this. And I have to stop at this point because there's a very important person in this room. If she will stand, I'm sorry, Lindley. But credit where credit is due. Lindley is an architect with Newman Monson who has been pro bono doing some drawings and renderings and planning for the Historical Society. And so very much thank you for all of this help that you have already done. So if you can give her a round of applause, that'd be great. So the phase 1, you can see, doesn't involve much except maybe making a long extension sidewalk from the parking lot. And again, we've provided areas for bus drop off. How cool would it be to have schools come and pull up a couple buses and drop off the kids? But other than that, phase 1 is kind of leaving this alone, which is okay because we don't have money for it. So we're going to start with the nature sanctuary and work our way east. And then you can see the master conceptual plan for phase 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So as we keep saying, the Jordan House isn't going anywhere, obviously. We would like to put the log cabin in kind of snuggled in orchard that will be part of the arboretum. We have to keep all new buildings or all older buildings that we put there a far enough distance away from the Jordan House so nobody could come up and think that the Bennett School or the log cabin is related to the Jordan family. There has to be a visual break. So nestling the cabin amongst the orchard will absolutely be gorgeous. The new Bennett School, we would move over there. The topography of the land is absolutely perfect for doing a walkout basement, because there has always been a basement in that school. But again, it is not accessible to anybody. The stairs are awful. So if we have a walkout basement, anybody in a wheelchair or with some difficulties will be able to get into it where the kitchen is. And then the Heritage Center will be over there. It will look down to a pond wetland, and there are going to be gorgeous trees and prairie restoration. Meanwhile, at the Jordan House, the Polk County Master Gardeners have agreed to take us on as one of their volunteer sites. So they are in the process right now of creating their own kind of master plan, starting primarily with plantings around the foundation of the Jordan House. But their goal is to make it appropriate for the time, easy to take care of, because none of these thumbs are green over here. They are all black. So hugely appreciative of that. So this is going to be a whole kind of gathering area, and this is going to be program area. So we're really excited about what's going to happen. So this is kind of a 3D view of what you will see when you're looking down from the house. So there's the log cabin. There is Bennett School. And on this side is the Heritage Center. Then the Jordan House is right here. So there's going to be this large open area for sitting and meeting and picnicking and things like that. And there's going to be a lot of signage, interpretive signage, and information. So this is going to be a completely new and frankly wonderful thing.
And just to clarify, if you're kind of confused at the angle of this, this is Fuller behind here. And so Jordan House, this is a side of the house we hadn't seen for many, many years, because remember that tall dormitory building that was in front of it is now gone. It's wonderful to see it. And the other thing, if you've participated or donated to the Pathway to Freedom, right? History, freedom, pathway to history. We will be moving those and making it a central part of this historic campus. And we anticipate donors that give to the historic campus will also be recognized there as well, and other places. But it is really exciting to see. And again, these are just blank squares, as Lindley will tell you. Like, we have no plans yet for what that Heritage Center even looks like. And again, that's with more funds, we can develop that more. But it's really exciting. Questions? We threw a lot at you, and we were told to talk for like a half hour, right? So if you have, and I'll go back to questions, but there's the three main contacts, the three main parts. You can go to the city website to access any of them and go from there. But questions that you have that any of us can answer. Yes.
Well, within the Arboretum section.
Yep.
Or the sanctuary, will there be like either trails? Or
Oh, yes. Sorry. Marco, do you want to talk to that?
Or, for people to walk
Yep.
through?
So the question was, will there be sidewalks and trails in the nature sanctuary portion?
Absolutely, yeah. So just pedestrian access and walkways is a key part of the plan. It's hard to see really on the plan itself with some of the, but the white lines are supposed to represent the walking paths, and it's going to be a combination of paved trails and maybe more aggregate trails, right? So we want to preserve kind of that natural feeling of the site by not having just paved concrete everywhere. So it'll be a combination of both. However, even on the gravel paths, they'll still be designed to be ADA accessible. So that means just the steepness of the path being below 5%, just so that someone that's in a wheelchair can still easily navigate them. So yes. Also, speaking about pedestrian access, I do want to mention just connections to our trails. So with the Jordan Creek Trail running on the east side, we have trails on Grand Avenue. I think that's a great opportunity to just make connections to the site with our existing trail network. And so we're proposing a trail along Fuller Road and a pedestrian bridge trail that would go across Jordan Creek at Fuller. So currently there's not sidewalk accommodations across Jordan Creek on the Fuller Bridge. And so we would be proposing a pedestrian bridge to be able to connect. Good quote. Yes, there'd be multiple opportunities for picnicking. Mentioned one in the near the Arboretum site would be a plaza room that would have a shelter and restroom there. So it would be an area that could be rented out for picnicking. And there'd be also just other spaces within the site that would be for picnicking and just kind of small gathering spaces. Mm-hmm.
Are there going to be park benches?
Yes. Yep. Opportunities for seating throughout. Could be an opportunity for donations as well. The city, we offer a bench donation program. It's been very popular. I could see that being part of. Any other questions? Okay. It's the $1 million question. Actually, the 4.5 million question. As we've alluded to.
Powerball is at a high right now, just saying.
Yeah, it is very much dependent on just the funding and how quickly we can raise those funds. So
5 years, 10 years.
I hope by 5, something, the nature sanctuary will be done and we'll be starting on the historic campus.
10 years.
I would just add, it's not uncommon. I think we've made vast improvements already from the demolition of the buildings to where what it is now. But it's not uncommon. If you look at Valley View Park on the western part of the city, that land was purchased back in the 1990s. The aquatic center was built in 2003, but the majority of that park is still undeveloped right now. We're adding amenities on the west side of it. But as we said, really this project will go forward as we have funds available, whether that's mostly from the private sector. I think at some point, we can look at from the city's perspective and say, The private side did so much for us. Is the city willing to contribute some? Right now, I don't think that's the case, but 5-10 years down the road, we can make smaller improvements and things like that.
School district participating at all in the educational part of this?
Not at this point. We have a very good relationship with the school district, and especially since Bennett School is on Jordan Creek School's property, essentially. But right now, we do a lot of education and outreach as it is. We don't need a new building to do that. We have school tours and private tours and weekly tours of the Jordan House, as well as working with social studies teachers on helping them tell the story of Iowa history. School districts don't have a lot of money either, so as you well know. So
Well, I have experience with that, but once that sales tax for school infrastructure, any instructional programs there, that might be.
it would be fantastic. I think that's a great idea. I think there are a lot of community partners out there that have yet to be identified. So again, the city has moved really fast on this to get as much done as they have. The Historical Society is going to have to do it in our historical campus in phases as well. The building itself could be as much as $5 million. So, and that's before we start buying tables and chairs and putting in exhibits. So, but let alone operating. While all this is going on, we still need to raise money to keep the lights on and the doors open of the Jordan House. The power bill does not stop coming because we have these amazing plans. So we will be launching a capital campaign once we are able to hire an architect and figure out what this building is going to look like. But until then, we will be doing an ask for our operating costs or the moving Bennett over, things like that. We will keep those monies separate if you designate it that it is part of the historical campus. And when we have raised enough money to move Bennett, we're going to put it on a flatbed and scooch it down the road. But not at the risk of closing the Jordan House, because almost 4,000 people come through there every year. And it would be very irresponsible for us to let this gem of the community suffer for our plans. So, yeah.
Would your offices ever move out of Jordan House
Probably.
and the house be restored for all those rooms that you're using?
There's a couple more rooms we can use for exhibits. So yes, that would be fantastic. As long as I have a window to watch the critters, I'm perfectly happy.
Well, and like I said, the auction that you had there, the Christmas dinner we had there one year.
Yeah.
Those are all things that I think.
Yes, would be awesome that we can expand.
And the craft show that we did there.
We also would like in the Heritage Center, I forgot to add there, but archival space. Right now it's all in one little room and it's not the most organized, no fault of Gale, but it'd be pretty hard to find specific information right now if I went to you and said, I want this family history. So hopefully we can put some of that in the Heritage Center in a safe space. And yeah, so this Heritage Center is going to have to be like wonderful and do everything we want. But yeah, and research opportunities. Yeah, so a lot.
Families might be happy to donate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If they thought it was gonna be out for other folks too.
Yeah.
We have a lot of offers of people trying to give us stuff, which is incredibly generous and wonderful. We have to say no to a lot of it because it either doesn't fit in our parameters for what we take, or we don't feel like we can take care of it. And that's something to think about whenever you're offering something to a museum. They have to keep it in good order in perpetuity. So that is one of the reasons why the state is getting rid of the log cabin. They've had it for 20 plus years in their basement. They have no place to put it. So they're being respectful of the donor's wishes and getting it someplace where it will be open to the public and will be utilized. So, but yeah, we know there's Jordan stuff out there, which we consider tier 1 priority for collecting, but it's staying with the families until we have someplace that's safe and secure and climate controlled and appropriate for the family to donate all of those handwritten letters between James Jordan and allegedly John Brown. We don't want them at the house quite yet. We do eventually.
We had a couple questions on that.
Marco, I've been over to the property and there's no reason why people, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I walked the property and it doesn't say keep out, so your response?
To the site, technically, we are not, it's not for public space yet, just because we still are doing studies, work on there. So we're not making that a public space yet. Here, after phase 1 is complete, I think that could be an opportunity, but currently with just the work that's happening, it's not yet a public space. And fence.
Will the fence remain?
Yes, so the perimeter fence that's on site right now, that's remaining for now. It may eventually go once we start improving the site, but just for now, while we're still in the improvement phase, that perimeter chain link fence is remaining in place, but it will eventually probably go away. Yes.
We travel that space multiple times during the day. It's already a vast improvement from our perspective. Individual.
Thank you very much, yes.
Thank you.
Stay that way a while. It's better than-
It would still be an improvement.
Yeah.
Except those trees. Well, if we could put those right back on the stumps, we would.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
So I hope this answered some questions and maybe got you excited about supporting this project. The next Iowa Files will be Sunday, October 20th, when folks from Taste of the Junction will be in to talk about the amazing history and heritage of Valley Junction itself. So thank you so much and have a great day.